Right then, back to this, are we? It's been a good few months, let's just put it that way. But I thought of a good idea. For once, I have one. I never usually do. Well, I don't know actually, this could end up being horrible. But I've got one. The Scurry Game tier list. Now, my definition of a scurry game is the list on Wikipedia that says list of scurry games. I have to basically know enough about it, if not preferably for all of these, or most of these, but a few of them, actually finished it. Obviously, a few of them have not, but I think I know enough about it to say how good it is, and that's a few of them. But I've at least give a go to most of these. The only one I've not touched at all, I think, is Last of Us 2 out of these. The rest of them I've played all the way through, or a good amount to know what it is. I've just went in order, like through the list, seen which ones I have played and that fit these criteria, and put them on. So to start off with, we have a game that didn't do very well in my normal tier list. I don't see it doing well here, but there's ways I'm going to grade this, and it's going to be more like how scary. It needs obviously, if it's not that scary, then it's not going to be a very good scary game, is it? It still needs to be fun. You need to be able to play it. And there needs to be some sort of story though, I'd say, some sort of backstory, bring you through it. Graphics don't really matter as long as it scares you, is it? There's certain graphical styles that do better at scaring you, but that's not the point. If one is worse, it's not going to be specifically because of the look of the graphic style, and it's because it's making it less scary. And given it's now just turned to Halloween, this was the best time to make this. So we start with Man of Medan. So yeah, as I said, this didn't do very well in the normal one. It's sort of, to me, it's sort of just it's sort of a B movie sort of game. There's not really much going on. It is quite scary-ish, but only really the first time. The gameplay, I mean, what you walk around, it's not really that much. The story, the same with the actual scariness of the game, it's not really much. For now, we'll put it at B because we don't know how bad the rest of the games are, although I do. That's the reason I'm making this. But it'll probably move, and I'm just gonna say it's probably gonna move further down here. I do plan on putting them all in different things, but we'll have to see. Next is Dead Space. Now this is one I didn't finish, but I did play a very, very good amount um, of the way through on the original version of the game, and I played a bit at the start of the remake. So I'm gonna base it off just the general idea of the game rather than the remake. It was only a few years ago that I played this, and in the remake, obviously, I played like the trial or something. This is it's one of the scary games on here, I think, and it's also fun. It's actually nice to play. You've got the weapons. I actually really like sort of the design of the levels. Well, the game. It's not really levels, is it? There are levels to it, I guess. Um, and that would be that it's this sort of Metroidvania, still more arcadey feel. You don't really get that with games nowadays. They're really trying to make it feel immersive and realistic. Sometimes that takes away some of the fun though. It's, it's definitely up there. It's the story itself though is probably the weakest part. I would say like there's not really much there. It's just sort of a regular horror story on a scary. There's a crew and they're all scared. I'm sure they'll ramp that up in the sequels, but taking it on face value, the very original game, S for now, I will say. That is very, very good. It's just generally great. Now we're on to four infamous games. Four very infamous games. Now, the only one I've actually finished is the first one, and the other three I know how they end. It's the sort of thing you know from like YouTube all these years. Yeah, you sort of watch YouTubers play through these, and so I know what goes on and how these games operate, and I have played a little bit of each of them as well. Um, but the first Five Nights at Freddy's game is probably still the best one out of all of them. It's the one that's has the most just it's the most scary one. It's got the atmosphere on. It's mysterious, and it's sort of worse now because these other games exist, I would say. Mind you, it's not perfect. There is still a lot of waiting if you know how to play the game. Them early nights are a bit easy, and once you've got over the jump scares, it just does get a bit easier in terms of how scary it is. this first original game I would say is better than Man of Medan, but it's definitely no Dead Space. It's a sensation for a reason. It's a different take on scary game. But then he tried again, and I think this is the second best one, mind you, or the third best one. That wasn't on there. I wouldn't count it. It's better, but it's worse than Manodon because I'd say like they've removed some of the scare. They've just thrown a few more things into. They've upped the lore of the game, which became a very big part of it, I guess, but not enough for me to say it's anywhere near as good as the first one. First one was just sort of a game that was made. The second one was made in response to the first game, and that's where it went from there. Let's go FNAF 3. Again, I get you're trying to move away from it. You're trying to get something different in there, and you did do that moving away. It is more scary than the second one, but I wouldn't say it's more fun, but it's less varied. Everything sort of happens the same way, and for a long time it was my favourite one, but maybe that was because it was the least scary one in general when you know how the game works. There's nothing unexpected really. The systems are a lot more easy to maintain. You can very easily tell what's going on. So it's really easy. Um, so I would say it's again worse. This here, FNAF 4, they did a little bit better. Now mind you, it is sort of the first one again, but they made it a bit too they tried a bit too hard with like trying to make it scary. Um, which just makes it annoying, really. It's just trying to like. These are just regular. Like you would see these in real life. You would probably see. You're not seeing that. You're not seeing that. You know what I mean? If you walk into one of these establishments, or ever did, you're seeing stuff like this. You could be seeing stuff like this. You're not seeing any of these sort of stuff going on. That's not happening. So I don't think it's worth saying that it's better than the second one. But they did pull it back a bit, so I would say it's better than the third one, just by a little tiny bit there. Now, mind you, Black Mesa wasn't technically on this list, but the original Half-Life was, and it's more or less. I know that they've added a few bits, and they've redone the entire end of the game, but more or less it's a shot-for-shot remake of Half-Life. So I put it on there anyway, because then it just gives more content. And also, I wouldn't consider this game a horror game, like a scary game. There is some split parts that they intend to be scary, but I wouldn't call it scary. Um, the scare amount is not great. It's like there's areas where they'll throw things at you and stuff like that. It's areas in the dark, but I feel like while the game is a remake of the first game, I feel like most people who play this played Half-Life 2, which should also be on here, but it wasn't, and I can't really include it because of that. The ringing inconsistencies. There's a lot more inconsistencies further down. Um, but yeah, I mean it is a good game. It's fun. It's definitely very fun. Um, which these don't really make fun. This is the only real fun one. For a scary, it's not that scary though. Um, what was the other thing? Story. It's Half-Life story. I do really like the Half-Life story, but I don't think it's like ground. I mean, it could have been ground. Right, I wasn't around. It was. I wouldn't call it anything majorly special nowadays. It is like a big, fun story, and there's a lot of stuff going on, especially when it gets to Half-Life 2 era. But for the first game, it's a bit more straightforward, and a bit more cheesy, shall I say? I'll put it at A, but like realistically, the gap's like this or something. You know what I mean? Like I can't really put that. Next, we're on the Last of Us games. Now these a lot of people argue that these aren't horror games, but there are very much a lot of scary things that go on in these games. The premise itself, if you have zombies, then it's more or less a horror game anyway, so you might as well just call it that. For the first one is, I don't need to like explain how popular the first one is. A TV show got made this year about it. It's that big. Um, it's the biggest game, perhaps the biggest game of the 2010s in terms of what it did. Um, before this, you weren't getting many narrative games that that were really trying to go somewhere more than it was bringing you to the next bit of gameplay. Now, mind you, because of the narrative being that good, I can't really put it completely high. I need to still see that it's scary, see that it um, is fun. Because mind you, this is a horror game tier list. The game's part, it needs to be fun. Um, and obviously, the more scary something is, the less it can be fun. Because you can't really have gameplay that like removes your enemies and stuff like that if you're gonna want it to be scary. But this, I think, does it well because it has the cutscenes as well that are scary sometimes and stuff like that, and shocking as well. Um, I'd put it as a, I'd put it there because there is definitely some very scary parts. There's a part in a hotel in the basement, or is it a basement? I think, where you, there's loads of zombies anyway, and you're trying to like start a generator, um, and that is one of the scariest parts of the game. There's part near the end where you're in a tunnel, a lot of zombies. Mind you, there's a lot of scary parts with humans as well, which says a lot about what The Last of Us is. Mind you, here's the sequel. Now the sequel, controversial to this day. I really don't see many of those complaints. Mind you, it's a different type of story, and it's definitely not something that every fan of the first one is going to be a fan of. But when I look at a sequel to a game, I look at it as if it's going to be a different game. I don't really like safe sequels. I do like a few safe sequels, but like for example, but they're usually not as good. Usually when they play it safe for the sequel, it's not as good. I'll have to ask if around because I've not played many safe sequels, given I don't really like them. But there's games like God of War Ragnarok, where I don't think everything there was improved. Jedi Survivor, I don't think everything there was improved. But it's really a point where you have to find a good balance between new things and old things. And there was this like uh, it was I think it was Sid Meier who said it's like 33% old stuff, 33% improved stuff, and 33% new stuff. Um, and that's like a good balance, and a lot of games ignore that. But this, I think, has a good amount of that. It's a good amount of the old game. It's a good amount improved from the old game, and there's a good amount of new things to pack into in terms of how fun it is. The story, to me, I just think it's better. Like the first one's very clear cut, a simple story going through. There is some complications throughout, but I do like a good story where you never know what to expect, and that's definitely what this game is. It's a game that improves on the first one in terms of making it tense, and that is part of making it scary. So I would say, honestly, it's obviously not a better scary game than Dead Space, but it's definitely a better game than Last of Us. So it has to go there, I think. I would say that's a good place. If I was going to go and play a game right now, if I was told to play a game that I didn't want to, that I've never played. Now I've never played it, but I've watched people play through all the way. Um, and from what I see, now obviously I've not played it, but because it was what I was on about before with the fun, they've added enough new stuff that I can see to warrant it being more fun. But if there was a game that I've never played that was given, like I said, if I was given like a gift from the gods right now, you can play any game you've never played. This is the game I would choose because of the fact I finished the first one. I want to see all them gameplay improvements because I really do like the gameplay in the first one. Um, Next we move on to a unique little series here, Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares 1 and 2. I don't think I've ever directly compared them, so this will be interesting. The first one is certainly scary. It's definitely made to evoke tense and scared feelings, fear. It does it in a different way, where not every single fear emotion that you feel will be that fear. It'll be something more. There'll be a lot of different ends of the spectrum of fear. There'll be like the disgust. There'll be like the shock, which you only really feel clear cut it's scary from all these. So this does it in a unique way. Um, I will say that as I wasn't on about graphic scales before, but while this game does have a very unique graphic style that I really like, it does mean that it does get a bit less scary compared to if you're playing that game in first person or something like that. But that's just more of giving it like a lived-in experience. You were the person, you know what I mean? Um, but these games do it pretty well, so maybe not. I would put it as a scary game. Now these are trying to be scary, but they're down here, and this is trying to be scary, but it's also fun. There is some sort of good puzzles in there you can get yourself into, and there's the running away, but it's not that fun. It's not incredibly fun. Uh, with all the points added together, I'd probably put it there. Given it's more of a puzzle game, I guess, than a horror game or whatever you call it. The sequel, while there is still puzzles, I think it makes it more scary, more unique, more fun. Which, I mean, it's a better game than the first one, but the first one I would say is more scary. So where would you put that? I think for the scary tier list, you have to put it below. But in any other section, I would put if in any other comparison, I would put that as a better game. Because the most important thing that is changing that is that it is a little bit less scary. Now Outlast is probably one of, if not the scariest game here. But I have a few problems with it regarding the other things I have, which is the fun factor. And what were the factors again? So you got the fear factor, the fun factor, and oh yeah, and a good story. So you got the plot factor, I guess. Now, mind you, I like the ending to this game and how the story all wraps up, but I feel like it's sort of the game is mainly just to try and scare you at every given chance. It doesn't really throw much else at you. There's not really a very intriguing plot. It's just sort of there to bring these scary moments together. Um, and the fun factor is really not that fun at all. You end up just getting chased away by things. Um, and the only real gameplay element is picking up batteries to recharge your camera so you can see. Which it does add to the horror element of the game, but everything else about it still needs to be somewhat there if I'm gonna put it anything high. I think because of that, it's going below FNAF 1, but above Man of Medan, because it's definitely better than this as being a scary game. But this really does try. It does have a gameplay loop at least, and there's a lot more replayability at the end, and the atmosphere I think is just better as well. Phasmophobia, we've got a game that is quite quickly became a favourite of mine. Well, quickly is not. Yeah, I would say quickly. It's been in the past year, and it's obviously been featured on this channel multiple times, uh, possibly more. There's a little scoop. But for now, the game the game has a lot to do, and it has dried for me a little bit. But that's yeah, I can't really blame it on that. If I played any of these games for too long, I would also have them dry out on me. For the initial game concept, though, it makes the only known case that I've ever found out of a game that is both multiplayer and scary. And for that, it needs to go high. It needs to go pretty high here, but not very high. Probably, honestly, better than Outlast because it's got gameplay. It's not in incredibly scary, but it's on the list, so I gotta put it on. It's not incredibly scary. It's fun. Um, the story's not there at all, but you shouldn't really have a story for a multiplayer game, to be honest. If I was the director of a multiplayer game, I'm not adding story. Don't try and. It's just not gonna work. The only time I've ever been connected to a story of a multiplayer game is A Way Out, and that's because it was specifically made for two people. Um, any more than that, though, there's too many moving parts to make a story that makes sense. And also, when you're laughing and joking with your friends playing the game, you can't really get connected to any of sort of deep plots unless them friends are also sort of really wanting to do that. But otherwise, you want to just have a fun time, do you? Resident Evil 2, here we are in the series that I have grown to love in the past 2 years. Um, I mean, there's many problems with many of these games, but each of them are great in their own way. That's right, even Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 2 Remake is one of the best ones. It's one of my favourite games. I can't remember if I put it in my top 10 list. It probably is, I'm not sure. If not, it'll be very much in that next 10, probably next 5. In the it's so first of all, it's a great remake. It's very fun. It's not as fun as some of the later games in the Resident Evil series, but it's fun enough. It's scary. It's quite much scary when Mr. X comes charging down the hall. And there is a story there, which, again, while I don't think the Resident Evil stories are supposed to be the main element, they're very iconic stories and they're very integral to the plot and like why things are happening. And they also all connect together. They've made 8 of them now, and they all work together. So you got to give them that. For that, I don't think it's as good as Last of Us. It's better for a horror game than Black Mesa. But you're getting a lot right though. You're on track for something great in your next game. So then they make the next game and it's not good. The thing is about Resident Evil 3 is it's really short. It's an action game. Every encounter with Nemesis, which is sort of your equivalent to Mr. X here, is scripted and it happens in a certain way. It did feel it was more fun. It was more fun than Resident Evil 2, but it wasn't fun for long because the game isn't. I think I finished it in like 3 or 4 hours. Which I don't think when they charged £50 for this when it came out, not worth it. This is it's going right around here. Outlast is better than it. I'll say the. I'm gonna rejig some of these further down in a minute. Because these are not A tier. Resi 3 is definitely not A tier. I don't know where the point is where it changes. Resi 4 original. Now this is one of the best games ever made. I know like it's fun to say that the game that everyone says is the best game. It is. It's really well paced. It's fun. It's a revolutionary. It changed the whole camera system for third person shooters. It's decently scary, especially if you're playing in 2005. This would have been terrifying. I mean, I played it in VR and I still found it scary with the PS3 level graphics. There's a lot it does right. The few things it does wrong are mitigated in the remake that I'm about to talk about, but there's no real way that I can say it goes wrong. However, it's not horrifically scary. It's not greatly scary, and this is the same with the remake. It's not greatly scary. It's less scary than Resi 2, Resi 7, but it is still an S tier game in terms of scary game tier list. It's going there. No, Resi 4 remake makes up for all the wrongdoings of the original, which of there are very few. I'm still playing through it. It's been 3 months since the last. I've still got the save file. Don't worry. I'll be doing that at some point. Don't know when. I'm busy now. Okay, I've got a lot to do, a lot on my plate, but I do want to still have this going on. It's fun, much more fun than the original, especially when you consider that they've changed the controls to more modern. What's the word? More modern opinions of what controls should be. They outdone themselves with this game. I didn't expect this game to be like incredibly great, but so far this is if not the best game of the year that I've played. Now I am playing through Alan Wake 2, and I really really like that game, and I'm not sure if it's going to overtake it yet. You'll have to see in my top 5 that I'm planning on making. I probably won't end up making it, but there you are. It's better than the original. It's not more scary than Resi 2. It's not meaningfully more fun than Resi 2. As a game, it's better than Resi 2. I'd put it there, but it's a scary game tier list. I'm going to put it like that. Resi 5, now, unfortunately, after the best game in the Resident Evil series that they'd made with Resi 4, they unfortunately made the worst one right after. The game's... It is fun. It's very fun to play with a friend when I played it. we used the rocket launcher to kill all the bosses, which was funny. Just how broken the game was. We were laughing more about how the game was not working. But other than that, like the story, it's just more random Resident Evil stuff. We should really not even be talking about how the story is, except for some of these later ones where they started focusing on it a bit more. It's better than Resi 3, but it's not better than Outlast, I would say, in this situation. I picked up the wrong one. Better than Resi 3, but not better than Outlast in this situation. It's fun. It is sort of trying to be scary. It's more thing, and it's an original game. This copied a game by being a remake and was worse than it. So you got to say something about that. Resi 7. Now this as a scary game, it's still fun. There's a really intriguing, interesting story going on there as well. It's different than the other Resident Evil games. You can jump into it, and it is scary, as I said. But it's not gonna like just make it's not gonna feel stale, the scariness, because they keep changing it up how it works. And it's one of the few games that gives you weapons, and it's still scary. As a scary horror game, it actually is S tier, I would say. There's nothing really wrong with it in terms of being a horror game. You've got the areas of mystery and tension. You've still got it to be fun, so you can get through this short sort of 7-8 hour game. There's a story there, which is not that horrible. You can follow it and you can enjoy yourself. Overall, it's just the lightning striked on that day on Capcom when the first person came up with Resident Evil 7, especially that logo, like the person who came up with that lightning strike twice. Then you got Resident Evil Village. Village, right? I played through this on the channel. It's one of the first big series I did of a new game, and I made my feelings very clear at the end of that game playthrough. What I felt about it. Now I do think it's not as scary as Resident Evil 7. Everyone says this. It isn't. It's just not as scary as Resident Evil 7. There is a part which is probably as scary, to be honest. Watch, like, I don't know, I think it's part 3 or 4, where I'd play that part. But otherwise, the game is more fun. It's like Resident Evil 4 levels of fun that they've increased it to. The story, I would say, better, but it's just not as scary. So it's somewhere on A tier, but I'm not quite sure where I'm putting this. It's not better than Last of Us 2, especially when it's coming to horror and story. Or the first one. There, I think. For a scary game, it's scary. It's fun. Not quite as fun as these games that follow. It's got a story that is good enough. These games sort of don't, and then these games don't really at all. These are like games that have good stories, have good horror, and have good thing. These have like 2 out of good story, good horror, and fun. Or like not fully out of all of them, because obviously I would say that like some of these definitely have good story, good horror, and fun. These are like 2 of them definitely. Like this has fun and good horror, sort of. Or like it's half a good horror and half a good story. This one has good horror and fun. This one has good horror and fun. This one has good story and fun, such and such. Finally, though, we move on to perhaps my favourite game personally on this list. It's like top 5 here. It's The Walking Dead Season 1. For some reason, the rest of them weren't on there. I would say that Season 4 is scarier, but whatever. You put this one on specifically. Mind you, this game is nowhere near as scary as even like the least scary game on here. It's definitely the least scary game, but it is probably the most disturbing, maybe the most emotionally scarring. Is that a way to? But you don't really want that on Halloween. You want it's just a scary game, to be honest. If you think about it, what you want on Halloween, you don't want to be sad. You want to be scared. And it does make you scared, but in more of like the sad way, like, oh no, this bad thing's gonna happen, and actually care because the game has a very good story. It's the best story here, I would say. But um, it's not that fun, not that scary. But incredible story makes up for it, and it bumps it up like 5 places. Um, as a horror game, probably here. This isn't really trying to be one. This isn't really trying to be one. Everything underneath is it's not good. Um, but now I need to find out where the split is. What brings it down to a D tier and below? Which I would say is probably this. I would probably say that these two are D tier in terms of horror scary game. Don't play them. This is probably C tier down here as well. In fact, no, yeah, this is C tier. And then where's the split here? Probably on FNAF, to be honest. So there you are, because this is like good atmosphere, good story, good horror. This is sort of you're falling off a bit in all aspects, and then from down there you go, but you're not really meeting the standard that I'm trying to set. Mind you, I might save this and put Alan Wake 2 on it when I'm done. Maybe play the first one as well. That might be something I want to do on the channel. I don't hear it's a very long game, but it was an interesting concept, and I did play a start of it, but it wasn't on here. And I didn't deem that I knew enough about it to put it on here, I think, or it was on the list. I can't remember which one it was. But either way, something happened and I couldn't get on. But either way, that is the end. So here we are on Halloween. This will get posted on today. And in order, these are the games you should probably want to play if you want to have a fun Halloween time. You know, you can get your sweets, throw them through the window at the children while playing one of these games. Or you could play one of these games in case your Halloween's not going so well. You can play these ones on your phone, to be honest. So if you've been forced to go out on Halloween, just get these. There you go. Day sorted. You're playing some terrible games. I wouldn't call them terrible. They're alright. It's just they're not there for horror. They're interesting. They have a good concept. But if you want to play some interesting, good concept horror games, you're looking at the top ones as well. Get these on your phone and go and have a little nice walk around. Try not to walk into any cars. Stay safe. Any of these games I really want to cover more. Obviously, I've already covered more or less all of the Walking Dead things that I can think of. To this day, still a series that I'm never gonna forget. I don't think. Same with some of them Resident Evil games. Them were incredibly fun. Last of Us, of course, just up there with the Walking Dead sort of like level sort of thing. They're quite similar. Little Nightmares, that they're very unique. Man of Medan, I'll forget that. I honestly forgot that on the list. I'm pretty sure at one point it was just actually not good. Um, I would recommend you play the FNAF games for their interesting concept more than I would recommend you play Man of Medan, because it's like a so bad it's good sort of level that we're getting to there. But I've been babbling, and I've been Zroxev, and that has been a tier list. Oh, and here's a new intro. I think I'm gonna use it. Whatever. See you.